We have the Breeders' Cup Saturday edition of That's What G Said podcast. Going to go through every single horse in every Breeders' Cup race for Saturday. Break them all down. Want to mention a couple of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast. Make sure and go support them because they've really supported us and they help us do what we do here on a daily basis. First up, Stable Duel. They are back with the contest on Friday and Saturday for the Breeders' Cup, back-to-back at the Breeders' Cup. It is a free contest, completely free. You can go right now and sign up. And what's great about these contests, it's daily fantasy. If you're handicapping the Breeders' Cup races, you just go through the races, you pick a salary cap, and I explain the entire way to build your lineup for Friday, literally going through horses, salary cap, everything on the Friday Breeders' Cup episode. And then there's going to be another episode of That's What G Said coming out later this week where I go over your Saturday lineup and how to build it. Check it out. They pay out through 50th place. So it's not like a tournament where you just have to win the whole thing. It's $1,500 at first place on Friday, and they pay out $10 all the way. If you're 40th or 50th, you're going to win $10. And then on Saturday, $5,000 to the winner, and they pay out $10 all the way to 75th place. So get involved with Stable Duel. Also, next sponsor, check out calltopost.com. They have a free contest on Saturday. 500 in prizes and giveaways. If you go to calltopost.com, you sign up to become a member and it'll take you to the Slack. I'm a member of the Slack and you can interact with other horse players, experts, owners, people who just love the game. You can ask questions and you can share your handicapping insight, and then they have free handicapping contests on a lot of the big days. So really cool site, and a couple of ways you can get involved in Breeders' Cup stuff this weekend, and maybe you don't have a lot of money, with free contest from Stable Duel, and then on Saturday, free contest over at Call to Post. Become a member there. Let's get into the Breeders' Cup episode. Pumped for this one. Hopefully all of you will be singing that theme song. My good friend from high school, Joey Cleveland, wrote that That's What G Said theme song, and the goal on this one will be to try to make a lot of money for you in that Breeders' Cup on Saturday. Hope you've listened into the Friday Breeders' Cup edition. If you didn't, make sure to go check that out. We went through all the Breeders' Cup races on Friday. Going to do that here for Saturday as well. Before we get into Breeders' Cup, just get into that in just a minute. This is going to be really Horse Racing Central show on Baby Watch right now. I'm actually surprised we were able to get through this episode. I was really expecting the little man to come at any moment, and I thought he would come before I was able to get these episodes out. So far, Stephanie's doing great. The little guy could come at any moment now. So just to everyone out there, do me a favor. Keep while we're watching the races this weekend and having fun, and then watching the football games over the weekend and playing everything. Just keep us in mind and keep your fingers crossed. Keep us in your thoughts and prayers. Hopefully, Stephanie and my little man, everybody comes out safe. That's all I want. Just safe, and I'll be a very happy daddy. Big congrats to the Washington Nationals. They beat my Dodgers, but I got to give it up to them. They really deserve this win. What a season from the struggling start. Looked like they were going to sell off, some of their players at the trade deadline. People thought the way their season started. And then they just went on this incredible run once they got healthy. And they were one of the best teams in baseball for, more than half of the season. They came from behind against the Brewers and against Hader in the wild card game. Came from behind against the Dodgers on the road in down 2-1, down in Game 5. They just crushed through the Cardinals. And then they were up against the Astros, 2-0. It looked like they were going to go on to win easy. Of course, the Astros were able to battle back a little bit, and then the injury to Scherzer kind of threw the series up. Scherzer was able to come back for Game 7, and they were able to work without, a strong bullpen, and the Nationals get their first ever World Series victory. Congratulations to them and their fans. They were excellent. And, you look through the series and it was really Rendon who was just so tough in the elimination games and so tough to get out. Soto, big moments, and Kendrick was good all through the playoffs. And then their pitching just carried them. So big congrats to the Washington Nats. Let's get right into the Breeders' Cup Saturday stuff. So we'll just go through quickly the first few races because, like I said, I'm not going to – the same thing I did on Friday. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time myself on Breeders' Cup pre-races, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of money on those races. We'll be focusing in on the Breeders' Cup races where we focus most of our time. So in the first race at Santa Anita, I would just recommend the 4 Just Graze Me. Make sure to include her. She sits the trip. She has some legitimate excuses for some of her poor performances. She's nice. Second race, the 2 Extra Hope. Going to go second start off the bench. Last time out, tried the grass, was at the back of the pack, was in tight, was in between, was not in a great spot. It was the first try on the grass and was probably farther back than he'd like to have been. And I think just a total toss and should be ready to take a nice step forward in this spot. Throw him in some of your exotics if you're playing. The 1 in race number 3, Originaire. You're going to get him to make a huge move. He's a stone-cold closer. He had to go 2 wide last time out, couldn't sustain the run. Just watch the price on him because, he was right there with Nolde. 2 back, he split horses. He was rallying late, and he just missed when Nolde was moving up the rail. It was a really nice runner-up effort. Mike Smith knows him well, and he should save all the ground and come running. So if you're playing, anything early on, some horse to maybe toss in some of your exotics. We're going to get to the Breeders' Cup, which starts in race number 4. Just a quick mention of one of the longtime supporters of That's What G Said podcast, Cindy Carava, full-service realtor. If you need anything in the field at all, give her a look, cindycarava.com. She can help you with buying, with selling, with leasing. If you need to improve your home with vendors, if you need help with a pre-approval, she can contact you and put you in touch with lenders. And she is one of the nicest and most genuine people I've ever met. So go ahead, give Cindy a call. I've known her for over a decade. She will take great care of you. cindycarava.com. Give her an email, cindyc.realtor@gmail.com. Breeders' Cup, race number 4. The Filly and Mare Sprint. We start with Kofivi, and she's awesome at her best, right? And everyone's talking, about the fact that she drew the rail, 7 furlongs. I'm not worried about her drawing the rail as much as I'm just worried about the fact that she is the inside most of a lot of the speed. She's going to have to deal with Danuska's My Girl right to her outside. Heaven Has My Nikki also has speed. Come Dancing's not exactly slow. I think she'll probably end up sitting a little bit more in this race. Same thing with Bellafina. She'll probably be more off the pace. But Selcourt is pretty quick. And Spice Perfection, is more of a sitter. So you're looking at Kofivi having to deal with at least 3 legitimate speed horses and a really fast one in Selcourt. And Danuska's My Girl's right next door. That's my concern. The inside most with at least 3 other speeds. That's going to be a lot for Kofivi to deal with. And I'm a little concerned. Her last couple races, she just crushed. Like the Saratoga race is the one that jumps off the page. She was able to sit off a little bit, sit off of Serengeti Empress, and then they threw down in the stretch, and Kofivi put her away late, and she came back to win at Churchill in an easy prep to set her up for this. Broke on top. She sat a length off. She moved the lead without really being asked from the outside. And the horse she beat, Bell's the One, came back to win the Raven Run at Keeneland. I'm just a little worried about her in this spot. So, we'll play against Kofivi on the win end in here. The 2 Danuska's My Girl just feels like this is one of the 2 Dan Ward trained horses that were transferred from Hollendorfer. She just never really seemed comfortable last time out. She broke mid-pack. She was squeezed out of a spot. She's won 5 of her last 7, 3 graded stakes, a couple at Santa Anita. She just didn't show a whole lot of interest the last time out. 2 back was a gate to wire winner. 20-1 shot. Heaven Has My Nikki is looking for her 4th in a row. She is a graded stakes winner. Problem is, a couple of her races have come against softer, and I just don't know if this is going to be a level that she can compete with going 7 furlongs. She cleared the field early at Belmont in that grade 3 win, and she beat Separation of Powers that day, who came back to win next out. She was up by 3/4 of a length early. It was a well-measured neck win for her, but she's going to have to deal with a lot of speed, and you'll be able to kind of tell by the way I play this race. I'm just going to be playing the horses, the fillies and mares, who I think are going to be sitting just off the pace and coming from off of it. 4 has Come Dancing, and she's had a pretty interesting year. She's now a millionaire, and she's a grade 1 winner, and if you look, she won a couple races in April and May to start her season. And then she was favored over Midnight Bisou. She was second that day. She kind of had a slow start, but she was no match. She really just crushed her rivals in her last couple starts. She's, had some issues with slow starts. She did miss the break in her last start. She was like last of 5, 3 wide, basically all the way around. She was never that far out of it. I do think she looks like the one to beat in here, though. So to me, she's a horse that I can't really leave out of any of my exotics. I think she'll get a nice trip. She should be able to sit to the outside of maybe Kofivi, Danuska's My Girl, Heaven Has My Nikki. I imagine Selcourt will go, and she'll sit behind them. But she has positional speed. She can go. I just don't think she's quite as fast as some of those. Lady Ninja, she's a grade 3 winner. She was actually running for 25,000 less than a year ago. In her most recent start, she broke well from the rail. She sat close up from the inside. She was just a couple lengths off at the most. She waited patiently. She split horses. She just got up and went a head bob over Selcourt. She's in nice form. It just feels like a little bit too much for her. She's only 10-1 in here. Bellafina. She was your Kentucky Oaks favorite, and then it just hasn't, been a very good second half of the season for her. Couple nice wins to begin. She was your beaten favorite in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies last year. And now she's in the Filly and Mare Sprint. She sprinted in the test. She was behind Kofivi. And then she went in the Cotillion. In the test, she was taken back to last. You could tell they were kind of determined to take her back. She was on the inside, but they then had traffic to deal with. She got into the clear, but she never was able to really make a dent on Kofivi and Serengeti. It was a little bit better than it looked on paper, though. Last out, she was a bit slow. She was able to kind of get right into the spot she wanted. Right up to second, she was pressing Jaywalk. She put Jaywalk away, but she was just no match for Guarana or Street Band at the top of the lane. She faded back to 4th. And now she comes back home. She loves Santa Anita. And if you want to give Bellafina another shot, I'm not against doing so. I have her in the 3rd spot here. She has every opportunity to get back to her best coming home. The question is that best even good enough, though, to compete if a horse like Come Dancing or Kofivi do show up at their best? Selcourt, she's going to battle up front. She's a major pace factor. She's a multiple graded stakes winner, and she got a clear lead last out. She just got run down. And, that happens. It was her first start since March. Now she's going to go second off. She looks to be the outside of the speed. She's capable of big races, but she hasn't quite been at her top level this year, and I don't know if 7 furlongs is where she's best. She's run big races there, but if she has other speed to deal with, I don't think she's going to be able to battle it out and stay at the trip. My top selection in here is going to be the 8, Dawn the Destroyer. I've been following this mare for a little while. I liked her race in the Ballerino when she was behind Come Dancing. She was actually a little closer up than she would like to be. Then she took back a bit to 5th. She was like 3 off. She closed well for a clear-cut second behind Come Dancing. And then at Keeneland, she just missed behind Spice Perfection. She was at the back of the pack. She was maybe 8, 9 off. She was dead last at the top of the lane. She angled out 5 wide and just missed. And 7 furlongs, she have some speed in here to chase. She doesn't have to be as far back as she was going 6. Let's give Dawn the Destroyer the top billing in here. We'll make a win wager on her if we can get like anything around 10-1 or so. The multiple grade 1 winner Spiced Perfection rounds out the field, coming off a grade 2 win last out. This is a nice Calbred filly, but she will face the toughest test of her life. She's never faced a Kofivi or a Come Dancing type. And last out, she had a terrible start. She had to move up the inside. She ran into a bit of traffic, but she stayed settled. She split horses and she rallied, and then she split horses again in the stretch. She held off Dawn the Destroyer. Did that race take a little too much out of her? That was her first start off a 5-month break. I wonder. And at 7 furlongs, she has won, and she's run a couple big races, but can she do it against a group like this? I have this race 8, 4, 6, 9 with Dawn the Destroyer and Come Dancing with Bellafina and Spice Perfection. Kofivi, if you're playing Exactas, try Supers. I'm not going to talk you off playing Kofivi. I'm just not going to be using her on the win end to start the early pick 4. I would maybe, if I'm the way you approach your tickets, if you're playing other races where you're not going to be using some of the favorites or some of the shorter priced horses, then maybe you include her. But I just don't really like the way the race shapes up all that well for her. And if she wins and she beats me at a short price, then I'll be okay and have a lot of other exotics to play throughout the card. 5th race, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Generally, I don't really like these turf sprints as much. And then when I got into this race, I really thought it was a good one because there are a lot of different ways to go. We started out with Totally Boss, who he's had a really nice 2019, 4 for 5 with the second, where he just missed behind back in June at Churchill. Last out at Kentucky, he sat just off the pace setter. He was always within a length. He was in the 2-path. He put away the leader early in the stretch. It was very nice, but he now draws the rail. And he sat a trip that was really the winning type trip at Kentucky Downs that time. The speed, you'll see some horses show up throughout the card on Saturday that ran really well at Kentucky, but they were able to kind of sit a nice trip, and track was playing really weird and not kind to horses coming from out of it. Pure Sensation is really quick. He used to have a little bit of a more sit off the pace. I don't think he really wants to do that as much, but he might be the speed of the speed, so really who cares if he's going to sit in here. He was asked for speed from the outside. He cleared the field last time out from post 11. And he got a slight challenge from a long shot, but he shook that one off and he was able to kick clear. This is his 4th time in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. He finished 8th, 3rd, and 5th the last few times. He's really in as nice a form as ever as an 8-year-old. You look back at Saratoga on August the 3rd. He was kind of outrun early, which is rare, so he tried to sit a little bit off the pace. That just doesn't feel like it's as much of his game right now. It wasn't bad. He was behind Leinster in that race, and we get to the 3, Imprimis, who's going to go 3rd, start off the bench now, and I really like him a lot in here. I'd be surprised if he's not bet down a little bit, and if he's around like 5-1, let's make a nice win wager on him. This just feels like a wide open race. That's why I'm expecting him to probably end up around 9-2, 5-1, and there'll probably be a lot of horses around that price. He's really just had tough trips in his last couple. Everybody's, I'm sure, probably seen those trips. Not September the 7th, he had a good start. He sat inside. He was 3rd, 4th. He was just 2 off, but he was buried down inside, and he never really got a chance to run. He was unlucky. And then last time out, he saved ground on the inside, but he was in the 3rd flight behind horses. He was traveling well. He tried to angle in between, but he had nowhere to go. He got shut off. He lost a couple lengths. He moved up again into contention, but he was trapped behind horses. He was surrounded with no room. He had to wait. He lost all chance, and he finally got room late when it was way too tough to win that race. It was just impossible. He was 3rd, and with a smooth trip, he can absolutely win. And because of those last 2 races, maybe he's inflated because he finished 3rd and 4th, and hopefully he doesn't get down because of those trips. The 4, Shecky Shabazz, was very quick, got the lead, but did have to work a bit to keep it. had the lead at the top of the lane, but couldn't really hold off Final Frontier. Did beat Final Frontier 2 back, going 5.5. I'm a little worried that just there's going to be a little too much speed in here for Shecky Shabazz. With pure sensation alone, those two will definitely be going quick. And it's not like a lot of these other horses are slow. Legends of War is not going to be far out of it. And then there's so many that are just going to be pressing, or if they break well, they might as well just go on with it. Stubbins, they've always been a fan of Stubbins. He's shown a lot of ability from early on. He's been in some tough races too. And it's when he's really just started to focus on the turf sprints where, you put a line through the La Jolla and you look at his last 3 turf sprints, they've been really good. Make an excuse for the UAE Derby. He likes it here at Santa Anita. September the 12th, he broke well. He finished behind his stablemate, Legends of War. He ended up, 3 deep, 4 off. He angled out, and that was another one of those days when the horses on the front end played really well. And so I thought Stubbins ran well coming from off of it. Last out, he had a slow start. He was dead last. He was 9th, 10 lengths off or so at one point. He saved ground. He got a great opening at the top of the lane. And he went, from about 5 off. He was able to get that opening and give him a clear run down the stretch. And he won the grade 2 at Keeneland. I think he fits in here. I'm going to have, I have 6 horses, and I like Imprimis the most. I have, maybe a top tier of 3, and then a next tier of 3, and Stubbins is in that, along with Stormy Liberal, who's your 2-time Breeders' Cup champ, 2-time Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint champ. He won this in 2017 and in 2018 at 5 furlongs and then at 5.5 furlongs. I like him. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's primed for this race, because this has been his goal all along. But he's 0 for 6 on the year, and he hasn't exactly been his best. He hasn't exactly been bad either. I'm okay with tossing the race at Kentucky because a lot of horses don't like that track. That's fine. But I have him in this second flight. I don't really feel like he's quite at the top with the top 3, for me at least. Stormy Liberal. A lot of respect for him. Have him in a fantasy league. Leinster's last couple races, he's been behind Totally Boss and Stubbins, and he was in front of Imprimis, who actually, ran really well and also had trouble. On the September 7th race at Kentucky, he was mid-pack. He kind of worked his way up to 4th, 5th. He was just a couple lengths off. He angled out 5 wide. He was no match for the winner. And then it was last out where he was 4th, 5th. He was too deep. He was 3 off. He angled into the clear. He kept Imprimis pinned in. He took the lead, but he couldn't hold off Stubbins. Wouldn't talk you off him. I just like there's a little bit more in here. Of the Doug O'Neills, I prefer Stubbins to Legends of War, but Legends of War, it was a grade 3 winner last time out and actually beat Stubbins. He just took advantage of a speed favoring course, but it's not exactly like he's a horse who only needs the lead. He can sit a bit. I think he's just best when he's right up on the front end, especially against a group like this. And will he be able to deal with the type of pressure that he may have to against this type of group? Final Frontiers had a really nice trip in winning at Belmont on October the 5th. It was a good start. He was in the second flight. He was 2 deep. He was not more than 2 lengths off. He loomed up 3 wide. He got by Shecky Shabazz mid-stretch. Another who would be no shock in a wide-open race. Eddie Haskell, he could float up a little bit, even though he's a local horse. He's just had such a good year, and he's been so good even in his races when he's been defeated. He can adapt to any pace scenario. He chased Lone Speed of Mr. Vargas on August the 17th, and he had a tough trip from the rail last time out. He was right with the leaders, then he got squeezed back. He lost 4 lengths. He angled out. He really got rolling. He's hard to leave out of your exotics. And if he's like 6 to 1, maybe he floats up a bit, make sure to include him. I have him 4th in here just because I'm kind of putting him in order maybe of price a bit, but he's right there in that 3rd, 4th. Just missed in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint a couple years ago going down the hill at Santa Anita. 5 furlongs just feels a little too short for him. We did see him winning at 5.5 last out. And he beat Totally Boss, undrafted, Smart Remark, a pretty decent group of turf sprinters. He was kept wide. He was 4 deep. He was just 3 lengths off. And then he tucked in for a little bit. He angled back to the outside. He got moving. And he was able to just kind of get to the lead at the right time and hold off Totally Boss. Belvoir Bay, kind of a forgotten horse. She's capable of really big efforts, as she showed in Dubai earlier in the year when behind the very nice Blue Point. We saw her back in June. She was close up second inside World of Trouble. She took back and around. She angled up to within a length. She was no match for World, but it was a really good effort. It was second best that day, I thought, and faded to 4th. Now she shows back up here. I have her picked in the 2nd spot. And I have this race with Imprimis on top of Belvoir Bay, with Pure Sensation and Eddie Haskell right there behind them, and then Stormy Liberal and Stubbins to round out the exotics in the 5th. 6th race is the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Yeah, the Big Ass Fans sponsored the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. It's also the start of a pick 4. I'm not going to give you like a specific ticket for this race. At the end, I'll give you a couple tickets. I'll give you one for the pick 4 that starts in race 4, and then I'll give you one for the pick 5 that starts in race 8, and then you'll be able to pretty much tell how I'll play the exotics because it'll go through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way through. Giant Expectations is coming off a runner-up effort back in August in the Pat O'Brien. He was just getting a great trip. He was sitting 6th, and his 5 rivals all lined up across the track early. He angled around, 4 or 5 wide. He got the lead, but Catalina Cruiser was able to battle back after Giant Expectations stuck his nose in front. This is his 3rd time in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. He's finished 5th and 6th in 2017. He was 6th. 2018, he was 5th. He has had some issues with slow starts, and I think he would need things to go everything his way in order to beat this group. Oh, another horse who had some problems at the start is Improbable. He was actually your Kentucky Derby favorite and your Preakness favorite. And the issue with Improbable, who was really good and undefeated at 2, and then at 3, he's only won the one race in the Shared Belief in a short kind of small stakes down at Del Mar. We always wondered if he didn't really want to go farther than a mile, and so this mile, he should really have no excuses here. He was acting up in the gate last time out in the Penn Derby. He had a slow start. He was last. He was early on, 6th, 5, 6 off, and then he moved inside and he was able to get up to 4th, and he wasn't too far out of it, but he was just a little flat late. Another race where he took a lot of money, and I'm sure he'll take a lot of money again in here, and I'm not going to be using him. I'm against him. Spun to Run comes off a big effort. He was behind a couple of these in the Pennsylvania Derby on September the 21st. He was right behind Improbable, and then he came back to crush. He beat a couple next out winners on October the 12th. He was able to get to the lead early, sat a close second, and then just the length off, made an early move to the lead, and at the top of the lane, he was, up by 5. I feel like this is a little too much for him, though. I'm kind of surprised he's that short a price. Maybe I'm just not seeing him, but I'm not quite as high on him. I do like Mr. Money. He might be one of my best bets on the day. He's just a really sharp horse right now, and he just missed last out in the Pennsylvania Derby after rattling off a nice stretch of 4 consecutive victories. He was a horse who was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year, and he was 4th. He really wasn't bad. And the start of the year, he was one they tried to get into the Kentucky Derby, but then they decided, you know what? They cut him back for the Pat Day Mile. He wins impressively, and then they took a different route and said, let's go to these middle-tier derbies, Grade 3, Matt Winn, then the Indiana Derby, West Virginia Derby. Then they stepped up in the Grade 1 Penn Derby and beat some really nice 3-year-olds. Now going to have to deal with older and better horse like Omaha Beach right next door. I think the cutback to a mile will help Mr. Money. I like the fact that he has speed, but he doesn't really need the lead. He had a length lead at the top of the stretch, and he looked like he was going to hold them all off. They were kind of all coming at him, and he was holding them all off, and then Math Wizard comes flying down the middle, outside of the track, and gets him. You always wonder in a spot like that if Mr. Money really saw him or not, but even if just a neck defeat, I thought a really good effort, and I'm going to give him the look in here. Unbelievable what we saw from Omaha Beach. He's won 4 consecutive races from his maiden to the Rebel to the Arkansas Derby. He would have been the Kentucky Derby favorite, but then he had to scratch. He had a lot of setbacks. It seemed like he was going to come back 3 or 4 different times in 3 or 4 different races, and every time he had a setback, he ends up going in the 6 furlong sprint race where I don't know if anybody really thought he was going to win. It looked like a nice prep, and he really just dug in and got up on the inside. He was close up early on. He was in the 2 path. He was 2 off, and then he was in the inside, just right behind Chancelot, waiting for room, got an opening inside when Chancelot moved, to the middle of the racetrack, and he just got up in the final 50 yards or so. Omaha Beach, a deserving favorite in here. He's lightly raced. I'm going to put him in the 3rd spot. I'm going to use him in most of the exotics. I like Mr. Money better just because from a value-based standpoint, I think you'll probably get 9-2 on Mr. Money, and Omaha Beach is going to get bet down in here. Ambassadorial was towards the rear. He was in between. He was 3 deep in his last start. He gradually worked his way up into the clear. He was in 6th, 3 deep. He really tried hard. He was grinding up for a well-beaten 3rd. That was at Chelmsford. I just don't know what to think of him going the mile on the dirt against this quality with some horses that have some really nice speed in here. Cole Front went right to the front, was able to clear a length. He faced some token pressure from Diamond King, slightly passed prior to the top of the stretch, but was able to battle back on the inside. That was at Parks in the Parks Dirt Mile prep. He won the Godolphin Mile earlier this year. Type of horse who might get left alone in here, maybe forgotten about a little bit, but he should be adding some speed at the very least. The 8 Blue Chipper, he is really impressive. If you can go and watch a couple of his races on YouTube, on July the 28th, he got the lead pretty easily. He sat second. He was just behind, and he was like playing with his rivals on July the 28th in the Owners Cup. And then in the Korea Sprint, he crossed over from the outside to the 2 path. He was pressing. He was always traveling well. He was able to wear down the pace setter late and draw off. Visually, I liked what I saw from him. I'm actually going to use him in the bottom of some exotics. I think he's kind of an interesting horse. I don't know if he's good enough to win. Diamond Oops was really good. In all of his last 3 starts, the ones that I really liked was the Vanderbilt. When he was 2 deep, he was 4th, 5th, he was 2-3 off. He kept to the middle of the track, and he went right by Matoli. He was a clear-cut second that day. And then he came back and he went long on the grass, and he was a runner-up again. Another really good effort. Flashed good speed in between, into the turn. He had to work to stay in front, but he was able to, battle. He had the lead till late, and he held second pretty nicely behind Bowie's Hero. Snapper Sinclair, probably an under in the exotics. He comes off just a monster win at Kentucky on the grass going long. So you'll see Diamond Oops also coming off the grass, and Snapper Sinclair. Snapper Sinclair was in tight, then he was in between horses. He steadied, he lost ground, he lost a couple lengths, then he angled out widest of all. It was a pretty incredible effort. I don't know if he's going to be able to translate that form over to the dirt, though, and compete with the top level. He just seems like he hasn't really faced a horse at this level. Play the 4, Mr. Money. If we can get anything, 4-1 or so. The 9, Diamond Oops. The 5, Omaha Beach. In the 3rd spot, And then behind them, I have Blue Chipper, the 8, and the 10, Snapper Sinclair, if you were looking for some deep horses to use in your exotics. But to me, this is a 4 to win. I'll play a nice exotics pick 4 where we play the 4 with the single, and then we'll come back on another ticket where we use the 4, 5, and the 9. Don't forget right now, as you're listening in, go and sign up for Stable Duel. It is free to enter. Download the app on your iOS or Android devices and get involved. Build your lineup. You can hear how to build a lineup on Friday with the Friday Breeders' Cup podcast, and then I'll be building in a Saturday lineup in the next podcast coming up in just a few days. 7th race, Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. We'll start with the 1 Iridessa. Last we saw her, she was 3rd over at Newmarket. She was a close-up 4th fish. She was in between. She was just 3 lengths off. She responded pretty well. She was 4 deep in between. She just caught, she just caught a horse who was pretty good that day, and she couldn't go on with the top 2. She doesn't have to be too far out of it, and she's a Grade 1 winner, multiple Group 1 winner. She's in her last 5, she's won a couple Group 1s. What do we do with Sister Charlie? Last year's winner, just as impressive as they come. One of the absolute best in training. And I'm going to take a shot against her. It could, later in the card on Breeders' Cup Saturday, it could get a little bit formful. And I'm looking at these races going, I'm going to have to pick 2 or 3 where I'm not going to be using the heavy favorite in most of the exotics, and at least in the top spots if I want to try to make some money. I mean, she's coming off her a 3 for 3 perfect season so far. She's by far the best in here. And that's what, it took me a little while, but then I was able to find at least a couple that I'm okay with, that I'm fine with using and trying to beat her. And I think legitimately can win this race if she's not at her absolute best. And I'm not going to talk you off using her. I'm not going to say I don't think she is the most likely winner. I'm going to say from the way that the Saturday Breeders' Cup card shapes up, I got to have to take some shots against some favorites. And this will probably be one on the win end. And a lot of people will probably be singling her to end pick 4s and to start pick 6s. But for me, I'm not going to play pick 6. I'll play a pick 5. So I'm okay with trying to maybe play against her in some spots, and maybe I'll play her in one backup ticket where I'm singling Mr. Money because he's not going to be a chalk. If I got Mr. Money home and then a long shot in one of the other 2 races, I'd like to have Sister Charlie to close things out. Fleeting was a pretty good second 2 starts back at Longchamp when 11 of 12 was, 8-10 lengths off, was 2 deep, loomed up, angled 2 from the outside, started flying down the middle, had to wait before angling out, and that might have cost her the W. What concerns me about Fleeting, she lost pretty easily in the Beverly D to Sister Charlie, and she just kind of came on late. But she's running September 15th, October 6th, and October 19th. Now she comes over here. That feels like too much. I like the 4 Bilston Brook a bit. She's going to go second start off the bench. She was taken back inside. She was 4 or 5 off. She was right inside of Iridessa. She kept to the inside. She got a nice opening 3 deep in between. I thought it was a pretty strong W. She's won a couple in a row now. She's been in really nice form over her last 4 starts. I'm going to make her my slight top selection in here. Bilston Brook. Mirth is hurt by the rabbit, Dice, who is right next door to her, because Mirth would be competitive in this kind of a race if she was able to get to the lead, and I don't know if that's going to happen with Dice. And yes, Mirth can come from off the pace, but can she come from off the pace and hold off, types like Sister Charlie? I think the only way she'd be able to win a race like this would be if she could steal the race, and that won't happen with the horse like Dice right next door, who's the rabbit for Sister Charlie. What do I mean by that? Well, she's owned and trained by the same owner and trainer, and they put her in this race to make the race go fast enough to set up for Sister Charlie. If you notice, she's been defeated by Sister Charlie a ton in her past performances, 5 out of her last 6 races. She's improving, and one of these days she's going to steal a race that she's not supposed to win. But her job in here is just to make sure that someone like Mirth doesn't go gate to wire. Vasilika is now partially in the Janet Hollendorfer name as far as the owners are concerned, and the Dan Ward name as far as the trainers are concerned. I think it's kind of crap that Jerry Hollendorfer isn't allowed to train. I don't think he's someone that deserves all the blame for what's happened at Santa Anita. I don't like the fact that it seems kind of weird. If you thought he was the reason and he was the reason for unhealthy horses, but you're just going to let him put him in someone else's name that we all know is an assisted trainer, I think it was he shouldn't have ever had his name taken off, and he should never have been banned to begin with. But that's just an entirely different story. A lot of things don't make sense in horse racing. Vasilika being an amazing claim does. This came for $40,000, ran second against optional 40, and then won 13 of the next 16 races, finishing third, and fourth in the ones she didn't win. This is an 8-time graded stakes winner now. Last out was just too far back. She was 9th, she was 10th, she was 10 plus off. She closed well late, for a non-threatening third, but she was just too far back. Now she comes back home. Look over this turf course. She's been 11 for 12 at Santa Anita. I wouldn't talk you off using her in the middle to bottom exotics. I don't have her on top with the best in here. Castle Lady, going to be facing older, was in the QE2 Cup behind Cambier Park. She was close up fourth inside, fourth, fifth, just within a couple lengths. She waited patiently. She angled too deep, but she couldn't get to Cambier Park. She's a Group 1 winner. Looks like there's a bit more in here. Villa Marina's got a big shot. Last we saw her, she was about 6-7 lengths off. She was 2-3 deep in the outside. She held pretty well. She angled to the 5-6 path, and she moved really strong to the lead, and she held off Fleeting. 2 back, she was behind a horse named Starcatcher, who won 4 in a row, top level, 3 of them grade 1s. This is a nice filly with some upside, lightly raced. I'm going to be using her in most of the exotics. The 10 Mississippi was behind Sister Charlie last time out. She was dead last. She was 2-3 lengths behind Sister Charlie, and they were both, 15 lengths or so behind the runaway Rabbit. Mississippi split horses, and she tried to follow Sister Charlie. She was a fine second. She just kind of couldn't really go on with that classy one. Couldn't really get closer than maybe 3/4 of a length to a length behind. She finished 3/4 of a length behind. Just wonderful. For the last 8. She was 3 deep into the turn in the First Lady. She was 7th. She was 8th. She lost some ground. She was right outside of Uni and just could not go on with Uni. Need to see a little more from her. Fanny Logan. She's looking for her 5th in a row. She's stepping up. She is a Group 3 winner last out. She was 5th of 8. She was 6 off. She was covered up, but she was kind of in the clear, right? She was covered up towards the outside, and so she was able to nicely just tip outside and get a geared down win. Dettori was up for that victory. Going to be up again. If you're trying to beat Sister Charlie, I think this is another legitimate way to go. So I thought the 4, 12, 9, and 1 were all opportunities if you're looking for a chance to beat the big mare. And if you're not, I'm completely fine with that. I don't think she's like a likely loser. I just think you got to pick one of these races, and I like a couple of the other short price horses a bit more. I think more so, I feel like in this race there are some lightly raced horses that have a little bit of upside. So let's play a pick 4 that goes 4, 5, 6, 7, and we'll play a pick 5 that starts in the 8th race. We'll give you those tickets right at the end. Breeders' Cup Sprint, race number 8. We start with Catalina Cruiser. It's funny when you can say a horse kind of feels like he's had a disappointing year when he's been 3 for 3 and he's won 3 grade 2s. He's undefeated. But he was your Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile favorite last year when he was disappointing 6th at Churchill. And the connections It felt like they had bigger plans for him, like he was going to be a classic type horse. He hasn't really been as flashy as last year, but if you're just looking at numbers and figures, he's been pretty close to where he was. His only loss was in that Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. This year he's been more of like a just done enough type horse. Like in his last start, he was 4 wide, he was pressing all the way around. It was a tough trip, and then he was passed. He was back a half length behind Giant Expectations, and then he came back on again and looked like he could have kind of drew off. The rail concerns me a little bit, but there are a couple horses that are big enough or that are capable of big enough efforts or throwing up a big enough race to beat Mitole, and this is one of them, Catalina Cruiser. And he has the versatility with the speed to work out a trip from the inside. In the San Diego, 2 back, people were kind of knocking his race, and look who he beat, Mongolian Groom, who we're going to see later in the Classic, and who's now a Grade 1 winner. So that race looks a little bit better on paper. Hog Creek Hustle will unlaunch a nice late rally. He should be rolling late. I just would like him a little bit more at 7 furlongs. He feels more like an under type at bottom of the exotics. Last time out, he was 2 from the back. He was 8th of 9, about 6-7 lengths off. He never really was able to get into the clear and unleash his normal rally. It was like a little bit sneaky trouble behind horses. Don't completely dismiss him. This, to me, might be the most wide-open race of the day, and I think a lot of people will probably just single in on Mitole, and that's just not going to be my approach in this race at all either. Firenze Fire, I've chased him quite a bit, another fantasy horse of Fight on Gino Fantasy Stables. He is coming off a really tough beat when he made Imperial work hard early, and then he tracked. He was about 1.5 lengths off. He loomed up. He took the lead, and he just got nailed late. It was a really tough beat. The Vanderbilt back on July the 27th. He kind of moved into a bad rail, went up the inside when he shouldn't have. August the 24th in the 4-go, just never could really threaten Mitole. So when you look at who he's lost to recently, Mitole, Imperial Hint, Mitole, Imperial Hint. Problem is he's going to have to beat Mitole or Imperial Hint in here. Can he do so? Coming off a big race, not at Belmont Park. More of an under. If he's the type of horse I get off, he'll probably win, because I promise you I've played him a ton of times. Like double digits would be where you need, I think, to play him. Awesome year for Mitole. 5 for 6. Now he's over $2 million in earnings. He was you go back to the Churchill race, and he sat nicely, and that was the race where he kind of started to show that he can sit off the pace a little bit. Even if it's just a half length to a length, just he doesn't have to get caught up if a couple horses are going to go battle. And then in the Met, he ran great, but I still think McKenzie was going to win that race if McKenzie didn't get into some trouble. Comes back in the Vanderbilt, and he's drawn on the inside, and Mitole just didn't like it, couldn't really deal with a lot of the pressure, and he faded that day, and he finished 3rd as your big favorite. Came back and crushed in the 4-go, and I think he's a deserving top contender in here. But he has speed. He's going to have to deal with Chancelot to his outside, who's also very quick. Imperial Hint should be sitting right there, and Imperial Hint has beat him. I'm going to be leaving out Mitole in a lot of the top spots. The 5 is Engage. And so now, in back-to-back races where you guys are probably thinking, what, you're leaving out Sister Charlie and Mitole? And it's not that I don't think they can win the races, but I can't, on like a Saturday, Breeders' Cup Day, play Sister Charlie and then Mitole, and then right after, there's a Breeders' Cup Mile that I think there's one horse that I really like who I think will probably get bet a little bit. And you go to the 10th race, and Midnight Bisou's going to be really tough in there. And then you go to the 11th race, and you got Bricks and Mortar in there. So you got to pick and choose. I mean, there's going to be a couple races where you're going to have to use the favorites. You can't chuck them all out. But if you just are playing a pick 4, pick 5, and it's favorite all the way through, you're just not going to make money in the long run doing that. And you won't make money in the long run when you really put yourself in situations where you even have opportunities to lose money. You have to kind of pick 1 or 2 races where you just say, okay, this is the race where I'm going to make take a stand And I'll chuck a horse out that's going to be the short price. Like what we've seen from Engage in 2 starts now for Asmussen. He was fine for Brown, but it seems like he just improved a little bit in order to, take a small step forward. Last time out, he was kept in the clear. He was 3 deep most of the way. He was about 4 or 5 off. He worked up and angled out 5 wide at the top of the lane. He held off Whitmore. It was an obvious improvement. And he's one that's just tough to know. Can he take another step forward and deal with the top sprinters? Chancelot is really, really quick, and he has been, just defeated in his last couple starts. They were pretty tough beats back to back. In the Jerkins, he was down on the inside. A day that might have been a tough rail down there. You had to deal with a lot of speed. That was going 7 furlongs. He cut back to 6, and then he had to worry about Omaha Beach up the inside. And if he doesn't drift, if Omaha Beach has to angle around him, Chancelot would win that race. He was 2-3 lengths clear early. He put away Flagstaff's challenge. He floated a bit wide, and that let Omaha Beach up the inside. Can he clear this field now with no Landeskog? Maybe Mitole sits a little bit and lets him go. Maybe Mitole's a little more worried about Imperial Hint, and he's trying to wait to make a move. And maybe Chancelot sneaks away. Whitmore, who was second in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year, another one who you come into this year just expecting so much from off of that runner-up effort last year. He starts in March with a win, and then he's behind Mitole a couple times, and he just never, middle of the year, he just didn't quite seem himself. And he came back and ran well in the Phoenix, dead last after the bobbled start. He came flying late. He angled out. He couldn't get to Engage, who seemed to be holding him a bit at bay late. But at a price underneath, Whitmore's capable of big efforts. He was your runner-up last year. Could be maybe a nice bottom of exotics horse. Scratch the 8, Landeskog. Imperial Hint looks like the one to beat in here. I'm going to make him my top selection. He is just capable of monster outings when he sits. He can win going wire to wire like he showed in the Vosburg, but he's better when he's able to sit and he has a target. And I'm just hoping that's the decision that they make today. Let's sit maybe 2 or 3 lengths off. He was 3rd last year as your favorite behind Roy H. He battled back to win when it looked like Frenzy Fire was going to get him in the Vosburg. He can show some speed if need be. He was 3rd in the Dubai Golden Shaheen, though behind Matera Sky, which is funny to the outside. Matera Sky is 0 for his last 7. Can he win a race like this? I don't know, but he proved he could be competitive when he was behind XY Jet and in front of Imperial Hint. He's quick. He was able to press XY Jet in the Golden Shaheen. So he showed he can keep up with legitimate speed. He just isn't in a very good form right now. He ran an okay second in that race in the Golden Shaheen when he wasn't in the best of form. Throw him in the bottom of your tries and your supers. Let's put the 9, Imperial Hint, on top of the 1, Catalina Cruiser, on top of the 6, Chancelot. I think he'll show some speed. Then Mitole behind them with Frenzy Fire and Matera Sky if you're looking for deep prices. Hog Creek Hustle, just in the 3rd and 4th spots maybe, or if you're playing super high fives, even bottoms. But Imperial Hint, Catalina Cruiser, and Chancelot are, for me, the top tier, and that's why I think with those 3, we can take a shot against Mitole, because to me, they think like there are many ways Mitole loses, and one of those 3 has a really, really big effort. They're all capable of big efforts, and I just don't want to take that short of a price on Mitole when there are others in here who can also, show up at the freak show type performance. 9th race. Start of your late pick 4. It is the Breeders' Cup Mile. Sedua was at Keeneland on October the 5th, was pushed 4 wide into the turn, but was able to get to the rail, was 10th, was just 6 lengths off, but was buried. Angled around 7-8 wide at the top of the lane and just missed 2nd. Finished 3rd. Seems like more of an under type. He's going to have to deal with Space Traveler and Bowie's Hero again. Luke Cullen was a nice winner at Belmont in the Knickerbocker, was too deep, was in between, was just 2-3 lengths off, was fourth, was fifth, moved to the lead, held pretty well, though, was zigging and zagging a bit late. Tough spot, though, for Luke Cullen, even though I really don't feel like this is the most difficult Breeders' Cup Mile. You look at most of these, they don't really feel like legitimate Grade 1 types. And we get to Space Traveler, who I think you could use underneath. I have Space Traveler picked in third. Multiple group stakes winner, was taken to the rear last time out, was on the inside, was covered up, was 5-6 off, was last. Slowly angled to the outside, rallied. It was a really nice, strong, late rally. It was a well-measured win. Not facing necessarily like the top company, though. Trois Floors, the 4, comes in from France, where he most recently was third. He sat third. It was in a small field in a very, very slow pace. He got an opening for a moment, but he really couldn't hit that hole, and he couldn't run down the 2 who were in front of him because they were just going real slowly early on. The 5, True Valor, back-to-back graded stakes winner, going a mile. He sat nicely on the inside, saved all the ground. He waited for room. He angled out in between. He was 3 deep, then 4 deep in a blanket finish, just able to get up. Those weren't very strong races, though. This isn't strong, but this is still a step up for him. He's going to have to face a really nice filly to his outside, Got Stormy. And here's my thing. I think she's going to take a lot of money in here, but how good is she? The 4-star Dave was great, and the Woodbine Mile was really good. But when you go through her form, she was third in the Jenny Wiley. She came back. She was a runner-up in the Distaff Mile. And then she faced a softer group in the De La Rose, and that was the race that kind of woke her up a little bit. Then she was able to face boys and do a really good job in the 4-star Dave. She's absolutely crushed that group. Last time out, she was in between horses. She sat second. She was 2 off at the most. She was in fourth. She worked up, and she took the lead at the top of the stretch. She had a half-length lead. She couldn't hold off El Tormenta up the inside. The win in the 4-star Dave, though, she beat him easily. But when you go back and watch it, the more... And why I guess I'm a little against her today, and I won't be using her in the exotics, is because I think she kind of fell into that win. It was like a really weird race where there was a runoff early on. She was 15 lengths or so behind, and she kind of fell into it, and she fell in front of Uni, who I like actually better than her coming out of that same race. She beat Uni. So I'll be against Got Stormy in here. Bolo really just needs things to go his own way. He was hooked wide going into the turn. He was 5 off. He was chasing last time out. He moved up to within 2, but he faded right away. His last 2 starts haven't been great. His grade 1 winner earlier on in the year, multiple graded stakes winner, and he should send hard for the lead because there's not a ton of speed on paper. And his best effort of getting a sliced or trying to make any large upset would be if he was right on the lead. El Tormenta, now a grade 1 winner, multiple graded stakes winner, worked out a nice spot on the inside, saved ground, was within 2, moved in between horses, and then went down to the rail, was inside of Got Stormy. He fits with this group, but I'm going to look to a horse who's new to the group. And that's Circus Maximus. To me, when I look up and down this field, he looks like the only real Group 1 type horse. He's a 3-year-old, but he's already beat older. He is a just legitimate Group 1 animal. Adds the blinks today. Last time out, I really liked his effort. He was close up on the inside. He was third. He was just behind. He got an opening. He shot through 2 from the rail on the inside. He held off Roman Eyes in a tight photo. Just key off the races going the mile. August 21st, he went right to the lead, and he just didn't really have a response late going long. And the races going a little bit longer, they're easy tosses. He faced a tough Japan multiple Group 1 winner, 2 Darn Hot multiple Group 1 winner. Anthony Van Dyck's going to be one of the favorites in the Breeders' Cup Turf. To me, just go up and down this field and look at every one of them and go, okay, have they been really competitive with grade 1, Group 1s? Are they like really Group 1, grade 1 types? He just looks like the absolute class of the field. I think I'm going to single him in some exotics. I think he's a nice pick 5 single. And a lot of people will look to other horses to single, Matoli and Midnight Bisou, who I think I'm also going to single on a different ticket. But he could be a nice one, who won't be maybe as chalky as others, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's 8-5. Without Parole has not raced since May. He's 0 for his last 5, and he's not been close since June of 2018 when he won. This is a Group 1 winner. He's only raced twice this year, though. Now he's making his first start for Chad Brown, first start in the U.S. If Chad's able to pull something like this off with improving a horse, then we're all just going to say, wow. And I'm going to applaud him, because this would be an incredible feat to take a horse like this who just has not been running well as of late and has not been seen since May and steal the Breeders' Cup Mile. Uni, 5-year-old mare, good spot to take on the boys. Just crushed a group in the First Lady. And it was 10 off, was tucked inside, moved up the inside, then angled in between, got to about 6 off at the top of the lane, and was 5 wide, rolling right on by. 2 back in the 4-star Dave, maybe 15 to 20 lengths off of it, and was inside at the rail, was last at the top of the lane, was flying through traffic, hit a tight spot late. I don't think she was going to win. She definitely could have finished second that day. The 12, Lord Glitters. His big win was the Queen Anne at Ascot. It was dead last, but slowly picked his way through traffic. It was a pretty determined win. Since then, hasn't been able to duplicate that performance. Did have some legitimate trouble, though. Beat Romanized in that race back in June. And behind Japan, behind Too Darn Hot, did have some trouble. I have him in 4th. I don't think it's the strongest race. I wouldn't be surprised to see him sneak into, bottom of exotics. Hey, Gammon went to the lead last time out. I'm expecting him to be forwardly placed. I'm just not sure if the mile is going to be his best. Just kind of seemed like he didn't really have much of a response when the real running started last time out. It's a tough post to deal with. I'm just not sure if the race shape fits him. Could be kind of in between. Forwardly placed. Now I'll try to go longer than we've seen him really be, successful as of late. He's been sprinting, going 7. And, if he's going to be on the lead, is he going to be as quick as some of the others who might be just a little quicker than what he's used to? It's kind of why I like Circus Maximus. I think he can sit really nicely. Has speed, and even adding the blinkers will put him a little closer, but hopefully not right on the lead. And not chasing, maybe just sitting. Rounding this field out with Bowie's Hero, who's quietly been a really nice, consistent graded stakes type over the last couple years. Now a multiple grade 1 winner. Went to Keeneland last time out and stole a grade 1 where he settled in 8th. He was just 3-4 off. Angle to the outside, was up for a clear win. It was a really nice ride. He knows his course well. Back home at Santa Anita. Bowie's Hero. I have 9-11, 3-12 in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Feel like the 9 is going to be really tough in here, Circus Maximus. The 11, Uni. The 3, Space Traveler. And the 12, Lord Glitters, under in exotics. Got Stormy underneath. Fine. I'm talking about, I'll probably use those in some way, shape, or form, maybe in the win end, but like 9 over, I wouldn't talk you off Got Stormy. But remember, when you're playing exotics and stuff, it just can't be all A, B, C's. And what I mean by that, it can't be all first choice, second choice, third choice if you want to make a little money. Race number 10 is the Breeders' Cup Distaff. 3 races to go. Don't forget to get the call to post.com right now. They have a members area, so you'll see right up to become a member. You can sign up and you will get access to the Slack channel. I'm in there. They're going to have a Saturday contest for the Breeders' Cup. It is free to get involved. They'll send you all the instructions. They're going to have $500 in prizes and giveaways. Really fun, competitive atmosphere for horse racing fans where you can have some fun, joke around, share handicapping angles, share your tickets. People will be rooting for you, share fun stories, and just talk with other horse players. I'm in there all the time. They have big contests, free contests to get in on a lot of the big days. It is absolutely worth becoming a member of Call to post.com. Do you have what it takes to handicap with the best? It's all free. Get the call to post.com. Race number 10, Breeders' Cup Distaff. Paradise Woods kicks things off from the inside. She might be the only one in here that's capable with a really good effort of beating Midnight Bisou. She freaked in the Santa Margarita. But you'll notice, like, she was third in this race in 2017, Paradise Woods. And then she kind of went into a little bit of a funk. She changed barns, came to the Sheriff's barn, took a few starts to get going, and then it was in April, when going a mile and an eighth, when she was awesome, and she ran one of the best races of her life. July the 28th, in the Clement Hirsch, she had trouble. It was really June 1st and July the 28th when she had trouble back-to-back. June 1st, she had a bad start. She ended up fourth of five. She was 3 off. She was tucked inside. She moved to within a length, but then she had to kind of tap on the brakes, and then she had to, angle all the way around, and she finished second behind LaForce. Clement Hirsch was 3 off, was in between, took back out of it, and she was just taken back a little farther than she should. Her weapon is that she has really good cruising speed. When she's able to just get to the outside and cruise, they can go quick. She can sit right off and then just crush. She couldn't go on with Secret Spice in the Clement Hirsch, who kind of loomed up and then finished second behind Ollie's Candy. But last out, Paradise Woods really was nice in winning. And she came back to Santa Anita, where she's really good. She was just on the outside, and that's just, when she sits that kind of a trip, she was just on the outside of Secret Spice, who set the pace. And after a stretch battle, she wore down Secret Spice, and she held off Ollie's Candy. Right next door, Ollie's Candy battled and winning the Grade 1 Clement Hirsch. She came back on the inside, but in the September race, she just was really no match for Paradise Woods. I'm going to pick Street Band second in this race. I liked her a lot in the Cotillion. I'm not sure if she's going to be ready to deal with the Midnight Bisou right next door to her. But her last 2 races, even on August the 17th, she was in the slop, in traffic, in the 2-path in between. She was 5th. She was a couple lengths off. She waited patiently behind horses, and she was up right with the leader to the top of the lane. She lost a tight photo for second. Came back and won the Cotillion, beating Guarana, coming from way out of it. I don't think she'll have an issue with the distance. The mile and a quarter race I thought was pretty good. Mile and 1/8 she should be fine with. I have her pick second. I like Street Band. I thought she's done a great job. Sophie Doyle's been awesome with her. Midnight Bisou, really, really love this filly. It's tough to knock what she's done. It's funny because her year started at Sam Houston on January the 27th with sort of a disappointing win. She was all out. She did not look like she was going to win that day. And then she came back and she beat Elate a couple times when Elate was kind of proposed to be the better horse. And she was not favored in the Ogden Phipps against Come Dancing, and Midnight Bisou won easily. She's just taken another step. She's so professional. She can loom up the inside. She can move to the outside. She's maneuverable. She can show a little speed if she has to, but she's best just sitting a couple lengths off with the target. Very push button. In the Personal Ensign, that was probably one of the best races of the year with her and Elate when they were battling, and Mike Smith was able to angle her all the way around the outside. It wasn't the typical race. We haven't seen Midnight Bisou really coming from last in the small field. Earlier throughout the year, she was kind of tucking in and sitting pretty close, and she came from way out of it. Not way out of it, I guess 3 or 4 lengths, but she was last and had to pass them all and come to the middle of the track. And then, in her last 2 starts, what's nice is she's proved that she can win at a mile and 1/8. That was always the knock on Midnight Bisou. How far does she want to go? Her best race is all at a mile and a 16th. She's a very logical single in here. And I'm not going to be trying to beat her, or I'm not going to try to get too cute in this race in a lot of ways. Dunbar Road's big win was the Alabama. Last out, she sat a close-up second, maybe 3rd, 4th, kind of in that mix. She was inside. She was within 2. She got shuffled from the inside a little bit. She kept to the inside. She got an opening. She moved through, but she couldn't really quicken behind Blue Prize. So Dunbar Road was third. I'm not sure if I love that race for her coming into this. Wildcat took a big shot at Midnight Bisou last out. Wildcat was second in the distaff last year in front of Midnight Bisou, and then didn't race this year until July. Showed up and was second, and then came back and had to deal with Midnight Bisou in August and September. And it was last time out when Wildcat tried to sit right behind Midnight Bisou and then move with her. Wildcat was third, was a couple lengths off, loomed up. They bumped at the top early in the stretch, and then Midnight Bisou kind of just spurted clear. Wildcat was really no match for her late, but she took a shot. The 7 is Secret Spice, who is a nice filly. I just wish she had maybe decided to cut back and run in the filly and mare sprint. I don't know if she wants to go a mile and an eighth. And she is a grade 1 winner, and if you look at her last 4 races, they've been really, really good. I mean, she really doesn't have many bad races on the paper at all. But she was behind Ollie's Candy 2 back when it looked like she was just going to blow right by. And then last out, she was behind Paradise Woods when she got the lead pretty easily, but just had to deal with Paradise Woods kind of pressing her from the outside. Under, at best for me, I'm going to have her in like the 4th, 5th spot if you're looking for bottom of exotics. La Force is just a big bust-out long shot, maybe, 4th or 5th spot. She was 8th in this race last year, and she won a graded stakes early in the year, but it was really because it was a race that Paradise Woods got in some trouble and got boxed in. And that's the thing we'll see with a couple of these horses coming up. Mike Smith on Midnight Bisou, and he knows Bisou very well, and I'm sure he would have had to, pick Midnight Bisou over Paradise Woods in this race anyways, but he got Paradise Woods in trouble a couple times this year. It was probably the Santa Margarita and the Clement Hirsch that she just wasn't in the best spot to win, and they made the change to Cedillo, who will be riding Paradise Woods in this race. Mike's on Midnight Bisou, who he's been on for quite a while. He wasn't on last time out, but that was just a scheduling thing. He had other riding commitments. Serengeti Empress, the Kentucky Oaks winner. She'll be facing older and other speed. She's going to have to deal with Paradise Woods, Ollie, Secret Spice, and mostly Cal to the outside. I was really impressed in a couple races this year with Serengeti Empress in the Acorn and in the Test, and she was behind Guarana and Kofifi. She actually battled on really well in both of those races, even when she was beaten 6 lengths. I wish she was another one that would be in the filly and mare sprint, like Secret Spice and Serengeti Empress. I would give a long look to in that race. She was inside speed last time out, but she couldn't get to the lead. She was back to third. She's like a length and a half off. She just is not the same when she has to sit. She came up into contention. She tried to angle in the 2 path, and then she faded. And maybe they send her hard and they try to wire this group. But can she hold off Midnight Bisou? Can she clear what looks like at least a couple other speeds? Mosi Cal's one of them. This is a big step up for Mosi Cal, though. She wired a field of 5. She crossed over. She was able to clear off a length. It was a pretty easy win. But this is a tough spot for her. And then Blue Prize, who is a multiple grade 1 winner now. She waited nicely at the back of the pack. She was just 3 off. She was in 5th. It was a small field. She angled 4 wide all the way around and went really right by Elate, who will be facing the boys. Elate would have been, a top, 2 or 3 choice in this race. She was 4th in the distaff last year, Blue Prize, finishing right behind Midnight Bisou and Wildcat. And I wouldn't tell you, much negative about Blue Prize. This to me just feels like a race where it's Midnight Bisou and she'd have to run and really not show up with her best effort. And if someone like Paradise Woods did, she'd be really tough. I also think Street Band is a nice kind of up-and-coming 3-year-old. So I have 4-3-1. Midnight Bisou, Street Band, Paradise Woods, the number 11, Blue Prize, and the 7, if you're looking for another kind of price, Secret Spice, who could be in the mix. Breeders' Cup Turf, just two races left. The 11th race, 1.5 miles, Zulu Alpha. We kick things off from the inside. Really strong September 7th race in the Kentucky Turf Cup. Big move. Last time out was inside, was behind horses, got beat to a spot, and it was just didn't really show much. And I don't think he could beat this type of a group. Acclimate has big early speed. He's going to show that speed to you. He really tried hard after opening up, 5 lengths and looked like he was going to run away. And a lot of times those runaway horses stop badly. So he looked like he was going to run away. Then he looked like he was going to stop, but he really tried hard. He's a multiple graded stakes winner, and he's going to be sent hard. He's at least an underneath type horse to use at a big price. So use him in like the bottom of your tries and supers. United has some upside. I just think this is a little bit much for him. He's lightly raced. He's missed a race or two, and that could hurt him. He's coming off of a September 28th third plate finish where he was taken back to 5th, but he was 12 lengths off chasing Acclimate, who spread the field out that day. United came running, but he was just a little too far back. He closed well, just couldn't make up the ground. Now he's going to have to face tougher. He's going to have to face horses going 1.5 miles for the first time. Keep an eye on him for maybe later in the year or early next year. Mount Everest doesn't really feel like a top tier Aidan O'Brien. This barn has not had a ton of success as of late in the U.S. He was a fine second behind Japan, but that was going 1 mile, and he has not shown a lot of success going 1.5 miles. Right next door, Anthony Van Dyck has been really good at 1.5 miles. I think he's one of the top plays in this race. To me, this is a really chalky race. I'm going to be just using the top 3 and betting choices and maybe one other price in some exotics, and Anthony Van Dyck will be one of them. His third place effort last time out was pretty good. He settled inside. He was 4th. He was 5th. He was 3 off. He had to wait and find an opening. He started the rally, but he really couldn't get going. He was 3rd. He just got beat for 2nd. He's been behind Magical and Enable in recent starts. He is a Group 1 winner. He was last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf favorite. He didn't run well that day. But this is a race they've been pointing to for a while, and it's a little different when you're pointing to a race than when you kind of come over when it's an afterthought. So I think he has a big shot of the Aidan O'Briens. I have him picked in 3rd, but he's, to me, right in the top tier with the top 3 really betting choices. Channel Cat is the 6. One of 4 from the Joe Hirsch turf last time out. He was tucked inside in 4th, 2-3 off. He waited behind horses. He tried to angle out, but he couldn't really quicken. He's one of the horses who things would really need to break right for him. It was a tough race, though, because the horses who were 1, 2, 3, they finished 1, 2, 3. It was a slow race, and you couldn't really make up ground that day. But Channel Cat, I guess I'll mention him with Channel Maker. He kind of looks similar to me in that I wouldn't be shocked to see them jump up with a good effort and hit the board, but it's just really hard to trust them because I don't know if they're as good as the top horses, and they would need things to really go their way. Alanock comes off an effort where he was 5th to 6th. He was tucked inside. He moved in between horses. He had dead aim, but he just couldn't go on with Desert Encounter. And I don't know if that was the strongest Canadian. Bandua will likely be, forwardly placed. But he's just won for his last 12. Major question marks at the 1.5 mile distance. He was close up on the inside. He took back to 3rd. He angled up in between, but he tired late in the Shadwell. He did hold on pretty well in the Arlington Million when finishing 3rd behind Bricks and Mortar right next door. We haven't seen Bricks and Mortar since August. He's going to be your favorite, and he's never gone 1.5 miles. But he's won races at 1 mile, 1 mile and a 16th, 1 mile and an 1/8, 1 mile and 3/16, and 1 mile and a quarter. Are you that worried about the additional distance? I'm really not. I guess I am enough to make Bricks and Mortar my second selection, but he's not a favorite that I'm chucking out and trying to beat in here. Last time we saw him in the Arlington Million, he was 5th, he was 6th. In that mix, he was tucked inside. He was waiting for room behind horses. He got a great opening. He angled out 3 deep, and he just went right by. I'll have him second in here. Because I do like Old Persian a little bit. He's just a true mile and a halfer. He's another horse who's been pointing to this race for a while. The Dubai Shima Classic, he was waiting inside third, fourth. He was just a couple lengths off. He was always traveling well. He angled out 3 deep, and then he exploded, and he opened up 3, and he held on. It was a really good win. And he looks like he rounded back into form. He came over, and he just beat up better in the Northern Dancer. Sure, I don't think, I'm not using him based solely off that win. I like the wins earlier in the year at Maidan when he had some trouble. Just feels like a real mile and a halfer. Third start in his current form cycle. Going to be our top selection. We'll make a win wager on him if we can get around that price. Maybe like 7-2. I wouldn't want to go under 3-1. But to me, he just feels like one of a couple real top tier win contenders. Arklow would be right on the fringes of like a real win contender. Of everyone in here, I think he could jump up with a good effort. He was 3 wide all the way around. He was able to wear his rivals down. And he just always shows up with a real consistent effort. I expect him to be in the exotic somewhere. Use him in your tries and your supers and maybe as kind of the price. 10-9, 5-11. So very formful, really chalky in this race for me with just your top betting choices. But at least we'll put Old Persian, who maybe we can get as your third choice in here, over Bricks and Mortar, over Anthony Van Dyck, over Arklow. Closing things out with the Breeders' Cup Classic. Big thank you for everyone tuning in again. Appreciate you being here with me all the way. I'm sure it's a lot to hear me talking all the way through, but I just like to give everybody as much information as possible. I know you're not going to all play the same way, the same wagers, the same races, and, I think every horse deserves to get really analyzed and broken down. Some horses you spend a few more minutes on than others, but everybody gets to, at least when it comes to these big days and these big races like Breeders' Cup, everyone deserves a shout at least, and at least a mention when they make it this far. So, a Math Wizard. We'll close things out in the Breeders' Cup Classic with Math Wizard from the inside. He was a maiden 16 claimer earlier in the year. He was then claimed for 25. He was in the same 16 claimer as Maximum Security, which is unbelievable to think about. Math Wizard is now a grade 1 winner. He settled. He came rolling. He went from inside last all the way, angled around 5 deep. He beat some of the best 3-year-olds. He's now a grade 1 winner, but can he step up versus the best, take another step forward? Seeking the Soul has tailed off a little bit. He was your runner-up in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile last year. He is a grade 1 winner. He finished second in the Stephen Foster, which is a grade 2. I just don't know if he's really a 1.25 mile horse. He was your Pacific Classic favorite. I thought he was, like a standout on paper that day when you really looked at the field. He looked like one of the best in what didn't seem like the strongest field on paper. He was 3 deep at the back of the pack in his last start, and he just was no match for McKinsey when McKinsey kind of took off chasing Mongolian Groom. Finished fourth behind Mongolian Groom, McKinsey, Higher Power. He's going to have to deal with Higher Power, who he's faced in his last couple starts, and Mongolian Groom. McKinsey seen a couple times too, so he's going to really need a form reversal at a distance that may not be his favorite. I've Owendale picked in the 4th spot here. He's in a really nice year. He ran 1 bad race at Fairgrounds earlier in the year. His Travers really wasn't that bad. In the Fairgrounds race, he got hooked really, really wide. It was a nice 3rd in the Preakness behind War of Will. He's at 3 graded stakes wins on the year. The most recent one was the Oklahoma Derby at Remington Park. He was 3 deep early. He was towards the rear. He made a big middle move. He was right up into contention. It was 4 wide at the top of the lane. He was able to wear the rivals down, and he kicked away while the group of 3 behind him all battled for the minor awards. War of Will, your Preakness winner, who's going to add the blinkers. He was in the Derby in that incident. Disqualification with Maximum Security. He was in the Preakness where he won. He came back and ran in the Belmont. We last saw War of Will in the Pennsylvania Derby. He was right with the leaders early. He took back. He angled around. He pressed. He never really looked at his best though, or like the winner, but he actually did battle on and he held pretty well right in the mix. You got to expect him to be forwardly placed in here. I'm going to make Yoshida my slight top selection. Thought he was going to have such a good year after that fourth in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year when he angled out wide in the Classic and it looked for a minute like he was going to win the race, and then he flattened out a little bit. And then he tried the Pegasus World Cup Turf. He was behind Bricks and Mortar. He went to Dubai. He was behind, Thunder Snow. He came back in the Foster. He wasn't great that day. And it feels like he's kind of gotten back into a groove in his last couple starts. In the Whitney on August the 3rd, he was last. He split horses and angled around widest of all, 6-7 wide with that big patented move. And August the 31st, he trailed. He started the move 5 off at the top of the lane. He angled out. I thought it was a pretty good effort. He's finished in front of a couple next out winners last out, including Mongolian Groom, who's a grade 1 winner, including Tom's Dietot, who just won a grade 2, including Mr. Buff, who won a New York Bred Stakes. I think there are a lot of things to like about Yoshida. You get Yoshida with Mike Smith jumping aboard, and Mike Smith, he got taken off McKinsey. He knows McKinsey well. He wants to get a little revenge back on Baffert for kind of taking him off McKinsey, who's going to probably be your favorite in here. Let's make a win wager on Yoshida if we can get around 5-1 or over. Then we have the Merrill 8. She was 3 deep into the turn. In her last start, she loomed up at 3 deep at the top of the lane. She looked like she was going to win pretty easily. She took the lead, but she couldn't hold off Blue Prize, who she's beat a couple times earlier in this year. That was supposed to be the easy prep to get her ready for the Classic against the boys. And so now she's coming off back-to-back losses. She's been beat by Midnight Bisou a couple times this year. No shame in that. But is she coming into this race in the best form? She's crushed fillies and mares at 1.25 miles. She's 3 for 3. I like the fact that this is the plan, and you probably get a better price on her because she didn't win that last race. Maybe she's 7-2 and battling for favoritism if she wins the Spinster. Instead, you might get 5 or 6-1. We'll put her in the 3rd spot. Higher Power was a non-threatening 3rd in the Awesome Again last out, but his big W was in the Pacific Classic when he sat just off the leader quip. He moved early to the lead, and he opened up 3 at the top of the stretch and put away a suspect group. But then he came back with an okay 3rd. Like I said, he wasn't ever going to win the race, but he hit the board in a small field after a tough start where you stumble and you miss and you really have no shot to win that race after the slow start. McKinsey. You go all the way back to the Santa Anita Handicap. He was 2nd, beaten just a nose, and he sat 3rd. He was 3 deep in the clear. He took back. He was 3 lengths off. That was the issue that I had with I love Mike Smith, and I think he's an excellent rider, one of the all-time greats, and he fits a lot of horses well. But it seems like with a couple horses like McKinsey and Paradise Woods, they weren't put in the best spots a couple times throughout the year. And you look at McKinsey in the Santa Anita Handicap. He took him off a couple lengths, and that might have been the difference between winning and losing. He takes back, and then he has to come on again. If he's maybe able to just kind of stay in his spot and not track back and float out and kind of lose a little bit of interest. And maybe that is just McKinsey. We'll see with the new rider, because he did the same thing in the Ali Sheba. He was in it, and then he dropped back a little bit again. And then in the Met, he took him back way too far, and even in the Ali Sheba, he wins. He comes back in the Met, and I thought he really should have beat Matoli that day. He comes flying up the inside. He had a ton of trouble. He was blocked repeatedly. If you read the running lines, I mean, he really had a lot of traffic. He was looking for somewhere to go multiple times and just got shut off. Then in the Whitney, he wins. That's the type of trip he should sit. His speed is a weapon. He should be using it. I don't think he should be on the lead, but he should always be sitting really close pressing and then trying to move to the lead and open up a couple lengths and get a little separation, because he's not a horse who wants to go 1.25 miles or 1.5 miles. He might just win this race because he's better. And if you like McKinsey, you're going to get a better price on him now too, because he probably would have been 8-5. He might still be 8-5, but you definitely would have been like 8-5, maybe morning line and a really short price favorite if he won the Awesome Again. He's 6 for 6 in the exacta this year, but he's only won twice, and at least 2 of those defeats were probably rider error, maybe a third. And again, not everyone fits every horse. And that's why you have a new jockey here with Rosario. And Baffert gets stubborn with these types. And maybe it is just McKenzie, and we'll see. And maybe it wasn't Mike Smith, and maybe Mike Smith was doing everything he could, and McKenzie just gets a little lazy and does drop back, and maybe he doesn't really have that killer instinct late, and he's just a horse who's going to run, second. But generally, when Baffert wants to prove a point with the horse, he does, and I think I'm expecting McKenzie to show up with a really big effort. I'm not going to try to, beat him or go against him. Have to mention Mongolian Groom and what, he's been doing as of late. It goes back to the big cap where he was third, and, he was second in the San Diego handicap behind Catalina Cruiser, and people thought kind of a fluke, and Catalina Cruiser maybe he didn't run well. But then Mongolian Groom came back and was third in the Pacific Classic. He went over to Saratoga, and he wasn't beaten a whole heck of a lot in the Woodward, and then he comes back and he wins the Awesome again, and he beats McKenzie. He stole the race last out on the front end. Really good job by his connections, just taking shots in the big races. And then the final two will be Vino Rosso and Code of Honor, who were facing each other last out. Let's start with Vino Rosso, who really should be a multiple Grade 1 winner this year. He was actually in the 7 furlong Carter, and then he stretched out to the Gold Cup at Santa Anita, and so he's a winner over this track going 1.25 miles, which you have to like. No match for McKenzie and Yoshida in the Whitney, and he crossed the wire first in the Jockey Club last time out. He got the lead by a length. He was clear over Tacitus, who came up and pressured him, but he was able to put away Tacitus, clear off, and then he had to deal with Code of Honor. And Code of Honor and Vino Rosso were battling and bumping, and Code of Honor might have gotten in front at one moment, but Vino Rosso battles back. And I thought it was just a really tough race to DQ a horse, because it just seemed like a horse race where two horses were battling it out. Vino Rosso was the determined winner that day. He crossed the wire first, but he was disqualified in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and I thought it was the wrong call. And there's no knocking Code of Honor. He had a really nice year, but what a weird year, right? He was put up the second via disqualification in the Kentucky Derby, and then put up the first via disqualification in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. But he won the Fountain of Youth. He was third in the Florida Derby. And then since the Kentucky Derby, he seemed like he's taken that next step. He came back in the Dwyer, was really impressive. In the Travers, he saved ground. He was ninth. He was just 6 off. He started the move to the outside. He was out in the center of the racetrack, and he drew off late. And last time out, it was just a small field in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. He was last of 5. Code of Honor was moving through. He saved ground. He was up to 4th. And then he was just 3-4 lengths off of it. He loomed up 3 deep. He stuck his nose in front for a moment. It was a really fun stretch battle. And I thought he was excellent, but he felt like he was just second best that day. And he got put up for the win. So he's actually won 3 races in a row. And I have him in the bottom of the exotics. I just don't like him quite as much as I like a couple others in here. So I have this race with the 5, Yoshida, over the 8, McKenzie, over the 6, Elate. That's my top tier, those top 3. Then I have Owendale and Code of Honor in the next tier. So let's go quickly through the selections for today. 4th race, the number 8, Dawn the Destroyer. If we get 10-1, let's make a win wager. 6th race, the number 4, Mr. Money at 4-1. Let's make a win wager. 11th race, the number 10. We're going to make a win wager on Old Persian. If we can get 7-2, and then Yoshida, if we can get 5-1, we'll make a win wager on Yoshida in the 12th. And then exotics. We have the 4th race, pick 4 in the 4th. We're going to play 2 different approaches. This is always how I play. When I play exotics, I'm always going to play 2 different approaches, because I like to play the 2 different tickets off of each other. And one race I'll sing, one ticket I'll single, and then another ticket I'll play. I can spread out and kind of use a couple different horses in the race that we single, and maybe key on a different horse or 2. So let's go to the 4th race. That's the start of the pick 4 with the Breeders' Cup races. First ticket is going to be a ticket that we're going to single Mr. Money. So I want to make sure if we Mr. Money wins, we hit this ticket. So I'm going to use 4, 6, 8, 9. And if you want to use Kofivi, go ahead. So 1, 4, 6, 8, 9 in there. In the fifth race, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 12. 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 12. You're spreading out using all the horses in that Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Sixth race, Mr. Money. We're singling in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Then the seventh race, depending on if you want to use Sister Charlie or not, the 1, Iridessa, the 2, Sister Charlie, the 4, Bilston Brook, the 9, Villa Marina, and the 12, Fanny Logan. One more time on that first pick 4. So remember, the reason why I would be okay on these tickets with using horses like Kofivi or Sister Charlie, who I don't like as much and I won't use on the other ticket, is because I'm only going to be using Mr. Money in the third spot. So I know this isn't going to be a ticket that's going to pay chalky. And in the case that we hit Mr. Money and maybe in the fifth race we were able to catch a price in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, we would at least want to have had Kofivi to get this thing started, or, Sister Charlie if we need to close it out. But on the other approach, second ticket, it'll be 4, 6, 8 in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint in race number 4. So we'll be using Come Dancing, Bellafina, and Dawn the Destroyer to kick off that pick 4. We'll go fifth race, 2, 3, 10, 12. Pure Sensation, Imprimis. We'll use the 10, Eddie Haskell, and the 12, Belvoir Bay. In the sixth race, we're going to go 4, 5, 9 in there. Mr. Money. We'll use Omaha Beach. We'll use Diamond Oops in there. And then to close things out in the seventh race, we'll go 1, 4, 9, 12. Iridessa, Bilston Brook, Villa Marina, and Fanny Logan. So there are 2 different pick 4s for you in race number 4. And we'll close it out with the pick 5s in race number 8. So these will be the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Close things out, pick 5s. Starts in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. First ticket, all. Yeah, what? All? Really? Yeah, we're going to go all on the first ticket. It's going to be a field of 9 now with the scratch of Landeskog. I mean, any of these could win. I think you just buy the race and instead of going like 7 or 8 deep, let's just buy this race. We're going to go all to start the pick 5. Then we can shorten up a little bit in race number 9 in the mile, which to me just doesn't seem like the strongest race on paper. I think you can go 3, 9, 11 in here. If you want to go a little shorter even, the 9 I really think is a standout, and I'll single the 9 on the second ticket. But we'll go 3, 9, 11 here with Space Traveler, with Circus Maximus, and with Uni. Single Midnight Bisou in the distaff on this ticket in race number 10. And then in race number 11, we'll go 5, 9, 10, and 11. We'll use Anthony Van Dyck. We'll use Bricks and Mortar. We'll use Old Persian. And we'll use Arklow. Close things out in the Breeders' Cup Classic. We'll go 5, 6, 8 with this ticket. That's Yoshida, Elate, and McKinsey, our top tier. One more time, repeating the first pick 5, all with 3, 9, 11, with 4, with 5, 9, 10, 11, with 5, 6, 8. Second pick 5 in race number 8. 1, 6, 9. This is the one we'll take the shot against Mitoli. We'll go Catalina Cruiser, Chancelot, and Imperial Hint. We'll single the 9, Circus Maximus there. 1, 3, 4, 7, 11 in the distaff. So this race, we'll use a few others along with Midnight Bisou. All the horses that we think could have a shot in there, we'll use 5, 9, and 10 in race number 11. So that's Anthony Van Dyck, that's Bricks and Mortar, and that's Old Persian. And then we'll even use a couple more in the Breeders' Cup Classic here with the 3, 5, 6, 8, and 11. So 1, 6, 9. With 9, with 1, 3, 4, 7, 11, with 5, 9, 10, with 3, 5, 6, 8, 11. There is your pick 5. Thank you for listening to me for quite a while, folks. You're awesome. Appreciate you supporting That's What G Said. Make sure to download, subscribe, everywhere you get your podcasts. And we'll be back with another episode in just a few days where we go through the Saturday Stable Duel lineup. We'll give you our NCAA football plays for the weekend, a couple NFL plays for the weekend. We'll check in on the Lakers.